Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're listening to, and welcome to another amazing show of the Resume Whisperer with Joseph STETTER. I'm extremely excited because today we have a very special guest, Reverend Dr. Marianne PADJAN, who is the CEO, Chief Empowerment Officer of Empowered Voice Publishing, Coaching. She has pretty much done it all. This woman is a 22-time international award-winning best-selling author who has helped people in multiple facets, especially as in meditation. She's an ordained minister, a Reiki Master, a meditation specialist, a Kundalini Yoga teacher, digital TV podcast show host of Meditation Millionaire. She's loves helping people, and she will share her own stories of, rags to riches. She's also a real estate agent, and share a little bit about what she looks for in building a team and what she's done to be great success. She's also a publisher and an expert panel and senior executive contributor with Brains Magazine. So please, let's welcome Marianne PADJAN.
Thank you so much, Joseph. That's quite a mouthful.
Oh, it is. So let's start a little bit with telling me a little bit. I mean, I know we've talked a little bit. You've worked as a recruiter. You now have a whole real estate team. You have a whole team with a few other businesses. So tell me a little bit about, first of all, getting that. And then second of all, what you look for when you're building a team.
Getting all of my businesses? Oh my
goodness.
Just
tell me a little bit about your background so that, again, in terms of you were divorced, went from divorce, practically bankrupt to, very successful now in a multitude of ways. So a little bit about your journey and what made you stand out, what made you succeed, and how do you carry that into building teams now?
Such a fun journey. So I come from a very, immigrant family. So my parents came here when I was 6 years old. So I was actually born in Croatia, and they came here and, worked really, really hard. My father was bipolar and also very old, sort of Eastern European, rules and regulations, and lots of them. And, very abusive, actually, towards myself and my mom. So that was really something I kind of grew up with, and kind of grew up to have not very much self-esteem, pretty low self-worth, self-love. And I've always been fascinated by the people who had better self-worth than I did, and how did they get there, and what am I doing wrong, and so on and so forth. And as a result of having such low self-esteem, when I was 17 years old, I went to a guidance counselor, and I asked him, because I really was fascinated by psychology, and I said, what is the difference between psychology and psychiatry, because I can't figure out which course to take at university. And, or I could also go the business way, the retail. I think at that time, the course was called business retail business, something like that. So I really, really enjoyed retail. I really enjoyed business. And I really was fascinated by psychology. That was really kind of the love of my life. And he said to me, something he would never get away with saying today, that would just be unheard of. He would lose his job at the very least. And he said, "Oh, you're far too pretty to be doing psychiatry and, hanging out in university." He goes, "Why don't you just go take the 2-year business course in college and be done with it and, kind of stay in retail because that's more your thing." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I kind of thought, okay, male authority figure, just like my father, this is, he must be right. So I went and I did that, and I didn't hate it. It was okay, but my heart was always beating for psychology. So fast forward many years later, I did take a course called Spiritual Psychology Counseling. And that was also fascinating to me because I'd always been fascinated by psychology because of the way my father was and all the medication he was on and the way his personality worked. And I thought, geez, I got to figure this out. Why do people do this? And then I ended up attracting a wonderful man, but a wonderful man who ended up being an alcoholic. So therefore I had to leave him after 18 years. And the same time that I left him, I was having some business issues and ended up shutting down my business. And I had to file for bankruptcy. And then shortly after that, my mom passed away. So that was really hard. It was like the 4 major things that could go wrong in your life that are really tough to take. I had all 4 of them in the span of about maybe 12 to 15 months. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is horrible. Like, how am I going to get out of this? And I remember the day I had to go file for bankruptcy, like actually sign the paperwork. And there was a stack this big because everything was paperwork back then. I'm sure it's significantly different. And I remember going into this tiny little room with a table and a chair, and there was a pen there, and he brings out this paperwork, and I'm like, wow, that's a lot of paperwork. He goes, yeah, you're just going to sit here. It's going to take you about 2 hours. And it did. It took me a little over 2 hours. And immediately, all I did was pick up the pen, and tears started streaming down my face. Like, it was out of control, sobbing, not somewhat teary, no, total sobbing. And so he went over to get me a box of Kleenex. By the time we were done, or by the time I was done, there was a stack like this of signed paperwork and a stack like this of Kleenex right beside me. And he just took the Kleenex, put everything into the basket, the waste paper basket. And he said, we're done. And he goes, you'll get further instructions, via email or whatever. And I remember I think it was like June, maybe May. I can't really remember. And I remember it was a beautiful, beautiful sunny day. And the minute I stopped signing the papers, I stopped crying. I don't know why. It just happened that way. I took my stuff, my purse, myself, and I went outside. And I remember standing in front of the building going, okay, that really, really sucked. I never, ever want to do that again. It's done. And now we have to move on. We have to move on. That's it. Like, I have to move forward. There's no way back. There's no way to fix this. It's done. It is what it is. Let's now move forward. And then I just kind of grabbed the bull by the horns. I shut down my business and I went to go work at a bank, because that's what you do after you file for bankruptcy.
Wow, very powerful story. Yeah, definitely. And talk about overcoming. And here you are several years later, running multiple businesses, having multiple teams.
Right.
So do you look for this kind of resilience in teammates or people that you bring onto your team? And how do you kind of measure that, or how do you quantify that?
Absolutely. You have to, because, if you don't have some sort of, it's funny that you should use the word resilient. I just finished doing a talk on how to keep a resilient mind in business. And you have to, as an entrepreneur, we get hit with so many things And if you're going to work for me, you're not my employee. You're probably going to be on contract, or you're another entrepreneur that I'm hiring. So you have to have a resilient mind, because if we're going to cave after every single little obstacle that comes our way, and oh my gosh, do we have obstacles in the world of entrepreneurship? It is one obstacle after another. And I always say only us crazy people are crazy enough to be entrepreneurs, right? I mean, it's so much safer having a job and a paycheck. But I'm not that person. I can't do that. So I want that person that can't do that either, right? I want them to be creative. I want them to be resilient. What are you going to do when things don't go your way? Because there's going to be lots of those days. So
do you have an interview question or something that you ask them to do or demonstrate that shows you that skill, or something that helps you guide whether or not they're just kind of giving you, the grin smile of like, yeah, I'm resilient, versus actually being resilient?
Oh my gosh, I was a recruiter for 8 years. I have heard so many, yes, that's perfect. I'm so awesome at this. Are you really? No kidding. What are you going to say, that you suck at this? No, I actually had some pretty intriguing questions depending on what the position I was recruiting for and whatever the owners of the company wanted me to ask. But I'd always ask some very interesting outside the box questions. So things like, if you had an hour to speak to anybody and to sit down and have a coffee, who would that someone be? It could be someone who's dead or alive. It could be, a family member, or it could be a celebrity. It could be anybody you want. And you can tell a few things by the way people answer that, right? Like you would get the person who would, all the 5 people would be, my mom, my grandmother, my grandfather, my aunt, and my cousin, or I don't know, my mother, father, whatever. So that person's going to get emotional over everything, and family's going to be it for them. Any family affair, they're going to have to be at that. Everything's going to be family oriented. Everything is going to be emotional, which is, emotions are great and we all have them, and we're all going to be emotional at some point, but you can't run business strictly on emotions, right? But then again, the person who gives me all the right answers, right? All the, Napoleon Hill, and I want to see all the business answers, right? All the leaders, all the proper leaders. And it's like, wow, is that all you ever do is business and nothing else, right? So I want to see a little bit of both. I want to see a rounded type person. I want to see what's important to you, right? So what's important to you is what you're going to go look for here, right? And what you're going to do and how you're going to handle this. And so if you're handling my social media, you better be aware of all the holidays, right? But if you're not that person who doesn't care about holidays, you're not going to even know that holiday exists.
Listen,
right?
I agree with you 100%, because there's a level where I ask a very similar question, but I ask for 5 people so that I can kind of get a range of people.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to me because the person itself doesn't matter to me. It's always the why, right? Because people will choose someone, because of their resilience, but they'll choose the same person because they came up with creative solutions, or they did something when everyone said, no, don't do this. They kept going regardless, So it's very interesting that I asked this question too. And it very well gauges, where the person is and what to expect about them. And it also creates a pattern of consistency. Great. And when you kind of have a team around you, how do you create a culture where people are excited to work with you? So what are the things that you do to kind of show your team that you appreciate them, accept them, acknowledge them, whatever version of celebrate in one capacity or another?
Yeah, I'm a big gift giver. Oh my gosh. I love giving gifts. I will give away. Depends on what they've done and, how they've handled the situation. And I have so many different businesses. It's crazy. Now I I have an additional platform called Empowered Talks where we have speakers. So I will give away a speaking position for them if they've done an incredibly great job, or I will give them a chapter to write in. And, I will do that, but I will also listen to what's important to them. Right. So maybe I'll have a contest. Maybe we'll have a party. Maybe we'll have a virtual party if everyone's all over the place. Right. It just depends. There's different things, but you've got to keep the team, the family, right? Especially the ones that family is so important. So, but family kind of works for everyone, whether they have a large family or a small family, everybody likes that family sort of feeling, that team member. Oh, you know what? You're so beautiful. You're so awesome. You're so this. And I'll go into a coaching call without calling it a coaching call. And I'll go one-on-one, or I'll do a group coaching without calling it a group coaching. We just call it a meeting. People don't need to know they're being coached, right? Some people
awesome.
are not.
So on the flip side, are there any habits, whether it's kind of character habits or communication habits, that you're like, okay, this is not going to work, that you try to kind of address as soon as you see it before it becomes problematic? And if necessary, when it is problematic, take the action to go, maybe this is not the best fit, kind of.
Yeah. First, I don't put up with gossip. That's just nasty energy. That's just like, that's a cancer in an office of any kind. And also, I don't tolerate not talking about it. I really am that person that I'm going to address it. And if you have a problem with me, I hope you address it, because I'm certainly mature enough to handle it. And it's not going to be, oh, he told me this, I'm never going to talk to him again. No, I don't even put up with that. It has to be you have to come to me if it's me, or you go to the person. You say it in a loving way. You don't do it in an accusatory way, because my belief is that you can say anything to anyone if it's said with love and with the loving intention. Now, if you're saying it with an intention of, I really want you to feel bad, I won't put up with that. I'm very sensitive to energy. I need my energy to be high, and I need it to be positive. And if you can't do that, if you come in every morning trying to put everyone down, or trying to bring everyone down because you're in some negative, all this negative talk, negative this, no, you're going to get corrected. Like, I'm going to get really nasty about that. I'm so specific. It's like, I'm sure it bothers them sometimes, but tough luck. Positive, and positive.
Excellent. I mean, I understand, because you know what, there's a level where when you have negative energy around you, it kind of sucks people in, because they get engulfed in it. And sometimes they don't even know what they're engulfed in. They just kind of jump along. And clearly, with what's happening in society in many cases today, where people are just jumping on the bandwagon for something, but they don't even know what they're jumping on the bandwagon for, right? So energy, obviously very, very important and very, very good. And I agree with you, because I think this is where I would say you've demonstrated earlier that you can be a leader, because you coach and you mentor your team without necessarily making them feel that they need to be coached or mentored, but making them recognize that there's ways to improve. So how often do you kind of check in with your team to make sure that, whatever expectations or results are on track, and that everybody knows, what's next or how it's going?
So that would depend on what's happening. So we have an event tomorrow. So this week's been a little more checking in. I have an online summit that I'm doing. I think this one's one of my shorter ones. So 5.5, maybe 6 hours. Yeah. So I usually go for about 6 to 7 to 8 hours, somewhere in there. So then, there's some technology. Let's check. Let's make sure this is working. Let's do this. Let's make sure everybody knows what time they're speaking, because it doesn't matter how many times you give them the list. People will forget. People will, oh, I can't get in. Oh, I have no internet. What are we going to do? Who's going to speak if this, all of this kind of stuff. So that depends. If I'm doing an event, then definitely more. And definitely the few days ahead of that more, right? Like we will be in touch a lot and then we'll have a bit of a break. Otherwise, depends which part of the team. You know, today I had a lunch important with the CEO of Think and Grow Rich. And that was a very long lunch because it was also with my coach, and it was, there was a number of things we were addressing. But early in the morning, I was there with my YouTube guide having a full-blown conversation. What are we going to do next? What's this? What do we, So it just depends. It could be just my social media team. It could be one person. It could be, I like one-on-ones. I like one-on-ones because, if there's any issues, they're much more freer to speak to me.
Right.
When they're by themselves. So I really enjoy one-on-ones, and I try to make time for everyone.
Perfect. And that being said, do you find that because you're more energy focused, you kind of tend to go right to the point of things, or do you kind of do the typical corporate meetings where, you spend 2 hours and you go through a lot of stuff, but never really get to anything that needs to get done?
Oh, I don't have time for that. I'm very straight. If you know me, it's going to be straight to the point. We're going to try to keep it as loving as possible, but I'm not going to let you hijack my meeting. This is it. And we're going to do this. This is what we're talking about. Let's get back to this. I'm not interested. Again, no gossip, no this, that, or the other. And if this is a conversation that needs to take place privately, I'm going to say, come see me after this privately. No. I'm specific. I'm to the point, and let's discuss it. I'm a big, huge, huge communicator. Say what's on your mind, because if you're walking around resenting, and this resentment is sitting here on your chest, and you're like, you can't even breathe by the end of the day. You're so resentful. I don't want any of that. Come to me, come to her, come to him, go to whoever you need to, and let's get this done. I would rather, I can't. And I couldn't have that on my team. Certainly not for long. If you're the runaway person, I can't do that. Can't do it.
Fair enough. So on that note,
I don't have to do it.
Right. Look, obviously people are very different and come from different cultures, different upbringings, different experiences of what is reality for them. So how many chances would you say you give in terms of being open about the communication and, addressing whatever issue occurs before it's like, okay, you know what? Maybe this is not the right place or the right time.
Typically 3 is my number, but it could go on. It depends on how big the issue is, right? If it's huge, we better, I don't even know if we're going to make it to 3.
Right. No, obviously, in the corporate world, there's always, if you're stealing, if there's any form of harassment, those are issues that need to be addressed very, very quickly. If there's issues like, your hygiene is not necessarily the best, those are things that, again, it's very important, and I agree with you, to take the time to ask if people are okay. You mentioned at the beginning of the show that you went through divorce and bankruptcy. And so, if funds are limited and resources are limited, it's not because you don't want to be, it might be because you can't. And therefore, obviously you've communicated very clearly how much you have love for the people around you, and try to support them in ways that kind of, okay, here, let me buy you this so that it can help get you through that. And I've done the same myself, so I totally relate to that. So what would you say is one takeaway? You mentioned that you were a recruiter early on in your career, from the corporate world, that you carry with you in your entrepreneurship right now.
I don't work that much with the corporate world right now, not as much as I'm going to be in the future, without giving any secrets away. But it helped because I got to see a whole other side, because I got a chance to speak to a lot of COOs, CEOs in some cases, VPs, sometimes a lot of HRs, lots and lots of HRs. So, when you're doing a program for the company, it's again a lot of HRs, and sometimes the CEO and sometimes the VP, same people. You're speaking to them on a different level, and it's always, this is the value, and this is the value that your employees will get. And you can tell the company the way they treat their employees. So if they immediately say, oh, no, I'm not giving them anymore, then I've given them, I'm not doing this. Like, you don't have to be a gift giver like I am. It's my love language. Gift giving is my love language. So of course, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to sing them a song. I'm not a singer. I could sing them a song, but I don't want them to leave. So that's not really my talent. So I'm going to give gifts because that's what I do. And I have so many things. Most of my gifts are my supplements, right? Like, they all love them. And these are when I give it to them, they love it. They just love it. And so, sometimes I'll stray outside of that just because I have that at home all the time. But if they I don't know, maybe I'm somewhere in a shop and I see, something that's appropriate for them. So when I do business with a company and I hear, I don't want to do that for my employees, I don't want to do business with them, really. I mean, I'm not desperate anymore. I'm not in that place where I have to take everything that's handed to me. So if they're interested in bringing some value to their employees, other than, hey, we pay them a paycheck. Well, everyone pays their employees a paycheck. What else do you provide?
I was going to say, because I've had clients on the recruiting side that, will pay a paycheck, but they're so underpaying or undervaluing their employees that it's almost like you might as well get another job. You would do better, because between the overtime and the expectation and, the work environment where people are screaming and yelling at you, it's almost not worth the pay. I worked for an experiential marketing company that we had 400% to 500% turnover per week. So you can imagine, I ran a team of 10 HR professionals, and I was teaching them how to do salesmanship, because our job was to recruit all the people that when you go to Superstore, Canadian Tire, that try to get you to sign up for a credit card, which is not the most fun job out there for anybody, especially since most people go away, I don't want to talk to you, and it's already kind of a harder sale to do. And, we were recruiting across Canada between 200 to 400 people a week. And the sales managers would send emails at 1:30 a.m. saying, I've changed your location, and if you're not at work at 9 a.m., you're fired. And, come and yell at the salespeople because they didn't get enough sales. And some of the locations, I remember we had locations in outside of Edmonton where it was minus 45 degrees and people had to be at a gas station outside. And it's in the middle of nowhere, and there might have been 10 cars for the entire day. And when the sales manager came in, it was like, what do you mean you don't have any sales? And just screamed out the salesperson. It was like, there's been 3 cars for the past 3 hours here. What do you want me to do? It's, there isn't an opportunity to have the numbers game. And when I spoke to the VP of operations, the mindset was, well, these sales managers are gods, so keep finding people. And I'm like, there's only so much I can bleed out of rocks. We've already gone through 3 databases of resumes. Unless you're paying for my team to go on the street and talk to people, there's only so much we can do in an online exchange kind of thing, right? So along those lines, what would you say was one of your worst cultural experiences in terms of your career and the environment, other than, the marriage with the alcoholic, but just from the professional world, that you kind of had that negative and, wow, I never want that, or this is horrible?
I wouldn't say the whole thing, because I find all of my experiences to be very valuable, right? Because they're either lessons or they're just so much fun. But even when I was a recruiter in the office, there was all kinds of drama that went on. So, sometimes it's good for us to be put into that and to see how you handle it, and then just grow the ability within yourself to handle something like that. Because to be able to tune out all the noise and to just stay in your own lane and stay focused and do that, it was just, I don't know. This one early on as a recruiter, this one particular experience was horrifying for me overall. Not like, oh my gosh, someone did something to me, but it was heart-wrenching for me. So I went all the way to, so I worked, my office was in Oakville, and I went all the way to the east end of the city, and it was like Thornhill, I think. And the company was run by the son, but the father was still in the office, and he would come to the office. And so when I came there, I had already spoken to the father, and I had made the appointment with the father, and the father didn't show up. He didn't show up for like a full hour. I waited there, and I was kind of new, and I thought I really didn't. And my boss was saying, you know, come back, like, don't, you know, she was texting me, and she goes, just come back. She goes, don't stay there that long. And I'm like, no, wait, let's see. And so the father was like this lovely man, you know, who gave me a tour of the factory and everything. Everything was really wonderful. And then I came back and I said to my boss, I go, I don't think we're going to get a deal out of this. I go, I'm sorry, I wasted all that time for myself and for you and for everything. But this man for sure 100% has dementia. And I know it because both my parents had dementia. So I knew what it would look like. And nobody in the family would say anything to me. And so I said to the son, I said, does your dad still make the decisions here? Should I not be talking to him? And he just smiled and didn't say anything. And I thought, this is what bad communication looks like, you know, like they could have just told me. But then later on, he actually did say something. But I thought to myself, oh my gosh. And so, you know, it was hurting my heart because of my parents. But at the same time, I was like, gosh, I feel so sorry for him, because he thinks he still works there. It's hard. It's got to be hard on the kids who work there, and, you know, on his wife and everything. And it just brought up all this other emotion. I'm like, okay, yeah, I won't be doing this again. I won't be sitting here waiting for someone for an hour again. And it was a good experience, but it wasn't a good experience, right? It was a terrible experience.
Listen, as you said, it's a learning moment. So
Yeah.
we have about a few minutes left or so. What would you recommend to people that are eager to progress in their career, maybe become entrepreneurs, to start doing or to make sure that they're doing, so that not only can they advance in their career, but also then trust their skills if they want to transition to an entrepreneur?
If they want to be an entrepreneur, you first of all let go of expectation. Goals are one thing, you know, because you want to create a goal because this is where we're going, right? We need the GPS to tell us where we're going. But let go of when you're going to get there, because what if you hit traffic, right? It's like the GPS. What if you hit traffic and you can't make it there? Don't allow yourself to get disappointed. Just stay consistent. That's huge, 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 huge. Consistent and persistent. Those two should really go together. You've got to not stop. A no is just a no for right now. It doesn't mean no forever. You can revisit that again anytime. So stay consistent, stay persistent, and cut yourself some slack. And then the other two things that I can't stress enough, well, three really, when you think about it: self-worth, self-love. Work on that. It's your foundation, and then you can build on that. Just like a builder would build a building. The foundation goes down first, then you build the building. Authenticity. Be yourself and be true to yourself, because why did you become an entrepreneur? It's so much easier to just be an employee. So stay true to yourself. If you became an entrepreneur because you want to spend some time with your family, carve out some time with your family. Make sure you do that, because that's why we're here doing it. It's okay if you have to work, overtime, a few extra days, but make sure that you don't go for days on end where you don't see your family. It's going to create way too much resentment, and you're going to hate it. Make sure you get some sleep.
Listen, I think that's a great tie-in, because both my kids woke up today at 3:30 in the morning and decided they're up, and at 5 a.m. they both got fevers, and the map of what the business plan was for me in terms of being consistent, persistent. And yes, there's been a lot of curveballs thrown in my business. Was okay. I'm taking them to the pediatrician, and 3 hours later, we were finally out of there with two kids that are sick, and my son deciding that he's curious and needs to go into every door. And then came home, and my daughter threw up just as we got home, and so just very, very, and again, I'm after shoulder surgery, so kind of functioning with one hand, more or less.
Yeah.
And so this was definitely a very long day, and there was a few meetings that I needed to attend to, and nothing got done. And messaged the people and were like, "I'm sorry, this happened. Can we reset and do it later?" So those are things that definitely I appreciate you, and I think that what you said also holds true. If you want to progress in your career, own who you are and own what you do. A lot of people say they know how to do stuff, but they never own the results that they contributed to or that they actually produced. And I think that to me is the biggest gap in the market right now, where we've been programmed for the past 40 years to say that we're hardworking, dedicated, committed team player with excellent communication skills, but not actually demonstrate or give proof of it. So thank you for that. It's been quite brilliant. And when you bring people to your team, what are things that you would say? Well, actually, I think we have 4 or 5 minutes. So I would love for you to share kind of how people can get a hold of you, if they want to connect with you, maybe publish a book with you, maybe be part of your summit, and just any final thoughts that you have on overall taking risks, and showing up the way you're supposed to show up.
Yes. And I did want to add just one more thing to the list. Integrity is super, super important to me. So no matter how ridiculous things get and how tough they get, do the right thing. Do the right thing, even if it involves money, even if you don't have it and you really need it, do the right thing, because in the long run, that will pay off. And that's kind of my motto for everything. And same thing with books, same thing with everything. So the best place to get a hold of me is Facebook, because I'm on there all the time talking to everyone nonstop. So it's just Marianne PADJAN, just my first and last name. And I have a real estate page there, but I do have a personal page. Please connect with me there. I'm also on LinkedIn. Same thing, just my name, Marianne PADJAN. I'm also on Instagram. I'm learning more how to use that. I'm not there as much. spiritualtouch11@gmail.com is my email, and you can connect with me there. I'm always looking for speakers. I'm always looking for guests for my podcasts. I'm always looking for authors and people who want to become authors. So thank you for that. And I don't know what else to say other than
final thoughts for you. Anything that you want to close with?
Keep going. Don't stop. And you know what? Just keep reminding yourself of how wonderful you are. And you know what? You matter. You're the best. You're awesome. Don't stop. Whatever you do, don't stop. Just keep going and you'll get there. It's beautiful.
I love that. And again, as a corporate culturist, I preach the importance of making sure that we build a team and we build a community, and we take ownership of who we are and what we do. And it's amazing to me, the corporations I talk to, that leadership is so disconnected from their people, and they look at an Excel spreadsheet, goes, this number needs to be better, but they so often forget the human factor and what a difference that makes. And when you're treated right, even if it's not the highest pay, people will enjoy the work, because you're spending 8-10 hours a day there, and might as well enjoy the day and might as well enjoy the experience. And of the top 10 reasons people leave a job, salary is actually number 7. It's how you're treated is number 1. And It's amazing to me how many organizations don't understand that. Well, we have a few seconds. I just want to say thank you again, Marianne, for honoring us with such great energy and a perspective of, have integrity, don't gossip, be committed, be persistent, and show, take ownership of what you do, so that you can progress, whether it's growing in a business or it is deciding to be an entrepreneur. And there's lots of avenue. I mean, Marianne is great proof that, you don't need to stick to one business. You can run multiple businesses and have different revenue streams. And I'm, starting to do that myself in different ways. And there's a level where, again, you never know who might open some doors for you. So if you choose to be negative and hurtful, you might come back to haunt you more than you know.
So true. Thank you all so much. And thank you so much, Joseph. And thank you for having me on here. It's my pleasure. I love it. The more people we can empower and make feel better, the better this world will be.
I agree. And this is part of the show, is to help people learn how to get a job, but also how to progress and become a leader in whatever way that looks like, whether that is climb the corporate ladder and become a leader, or whether that is an entrepreneur where you're lucky enough to start expanding your team and doing things in a way that empowers the people around you, rather than, holding them down because you're worried and you're stressed. And, life's way too short. Life's way too short for
life is short for everything. And we all want one thing, peace of mind. Actually, two things. My newest thing is peace of mind and peace of heart.
Amen. And so on that note, I think we are going to call it a show. Thank you again very, very much. I appreciate you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Again, thank you for listening for the Resume Whisperer. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. We will have more guests giving you different insights on hiring, on corporate culture in the next few months, so that you as a job seeker and leaders in companies can approach things in a more holistic way that produces results, increases productivity, and engages your employees and keeps them with you. Thank you, and have yourself a beautiful night and a productive week.